Hello and welcome back to the PHP 8 beginners course. We are going through the third course, which is going to include vardumps, math operators, and constants. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so let's go for a vardump. Okay, so basically what a vardump is basically taking a variable and dumping it out to the screen, your browser or whatever you're going to dump it out to. It can be used in a command line as well to actually dump out, like, let's say you have an array of multiple objects, or let's say if you have a variable and you just want to see what the variable is and what the type of variable is, it'll display that as well. So let's go ahead and start with a variable first off. So we're going to go with var1, which is just going to be a variable. And we're going to set it to, let's say, 64. So let's say we're in the code and we're kind of far down and we're like, oh, I wonder what this variable does. What you can write is vardump and the variable name inside the dump. Now, you'll see here, you'll have vardump that's followed by 2 parentheses. Basically, anything with the parenthesis is going to be calling a function. And PHP has a list of functions that come provided with PHP itself. Every update gets a few more. So basically, you would follow it up with a semicolon as usual. And what's nice about functions, and we'll go into it in another lesson, that functions, depending on how they're built, can be called from anywhere or can be used in your script. So say if you have it defined in another file, you can import that file and essentially use the functions and then import it into any of your scripts. So that way it's reusable. And most of the time when you're a developer, you want to try to develop a function in a way that can be used in multiple different places if possible. So that way you're not rewriting the same function over and over again in different files. Because what's going to happen is when you do that, you're going to run into an issue where you're going to have to go and update it in like 16 different files, and that's a waste of time. That would definitely be frowned upon, and I would definitely not recommend it. All right, so let's go ahead and save this, and we're going to switch to our browser, and we are going to refresh this. So if you'll see here, when you refresh, you'll see something that says int64. Basically, what that's telling you is that the data type of this variable is an integer, and the value of it is 64. So it'd be the same if we go back in here and change from 64 to, let's say, hello, or hello link. And if we save that and then we go back to our browser and refresh, you'll see that it says string 11 hello link. Basically, that's telling you that this is a data type of string. How many characters are in that string? As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A space is still a character. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's very useful, especially when you get into pulling, let's say, arrays of data from the database. You'll tend to want to see what the actual data that's coming back and what you can actually do with that data. Or let's say if you're calling an API, you want to be able to see what's inside the content of that API result. You'll tend to want to see what's being pulled back from that, so that way you know what you're going to do with the actual data inside. Okay, so with that being said, that's pretty much it when it comes to vardump. So let's go ahead and move on to math operators. So in PHP and many other languages, you have these things called math operators, which is like addition, subtraction, modulo, multiplication, division, and exponentiation. Negative to positive to addition to subtraction, multiplication, division, modulo, and a few others. So we're going to go through some of the basics of this. Okay, we're going to start off with the first operator, which is going to be addition. So we're going to take and set two variables. We got num1 equals 3, and then we have a num2 equals 5. And with this, we can do an echo of number. I'm sorry. We can go ahead and set a variable called answer to equal num1 plus num2. And that will give us, if we echo it out, the answer of, will give us the answer of 8. So if we head back and change this to subtraction, and if we refresh the screen, you will see that it equals -2, because obviously 3 minus 5 is -2. And what you could also do is use a function called ABS. And basically what that is its absolute value. So what you can do is you can take this, since we already know that it's a negative, we can go ahead and flip this. And if you see here, it just makes it the absolute value, which is going to be a positive number. All right, so let's go back to the VS Code. So that right there, we can go ahead and add absolute. And then we can also add, let's go ahead and switch these up. Let's go ahead and make this in subtraction. Let's go ahead and get rid of the ABS. Actually, let's go ahead and paste this down here so that way you can see it all split up. I'm going to get rid of the ABS and get rid of the ABS on this one. And just an FYI, when you go and you can reset a variable to whatever you want it to be, even if after it's set. So as you can see here, I'm doing answer num minus, well, this should be a plus, num1 plus num2. And that sets the answer variable to whatever the answer variable is. And then we can reset that to whatever we want it to be afterwards. So you got to be careful with that, because you can screw up sometimes and accidentally set a variable without realizing that it's actually needed in another place. All right, so with that being said, we have absolute here. And also what we can do, let's say we still have answer and we want to go ahead and echo out. Okay, so I'm going to show you something a little neat that you can do with strings. You can concatenate a /n to the end. And what will happen is, as long as you have it, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this in a PHP element called pre. And basically all that is this, it's called a pre-formatted. And what that's going to do is it's going to display the HTML as it is when it comes from, that's coming from a script. It'll display it in the way that you want to, with like the /n's for new lines. So if you see here, you ever see a ./n, it just means that it's going to go to a new line. So if we go to each one of these lines after we do that change for the answers that we're going to echo, let me go ahead and fix the, that looks fine. And we go ahead and save that, and we go back to, now make sure, like I said, you have to have these pre-tags in order for this to work. And, or you can technically just go ahead and do a break tag, and that'll treat the same, very similar on in just regular HTML if you didn't want to put the pre-tags. But for now, you learn something new. So if you go back to the browser, you will see that they're all lined up nicely, one after another, as we expect. So let's go back to, all right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is going to be multiplication. And that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the answer, and we're going to equal that to num1 times, you have to use the star in order for it to display as a times, or multiplication, num2. And if you take that and you echo, you take that and you echo answer, or you can just take this line right here. And this is where functions will actually come in handy and later. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and display this. So we're expecting 3 times 5 and 15. Let's go back to the code. You'll see num1 times num2 is going to equal 15. You can also add multiplication answer as we've done before, and display that in that way as well. Okay, and then we're going to move to division. So let's go with answer. So what we can do is let's go ahead and make it make sense, because obviously if we do it the other way around, we're going to get a it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and do answer num1 divided by num2. And let's go ahead and grab this line, or let's grab this line right here and go ahead and echo that as well. So we're going to do division. And if we go back to the browser, you'll see it's 0.6. And lastly, let's go with exponentials. I'm going to go ahead and do a shorthand expo. Let's go back over to the code before I forget. And basically that is like saying answer equals num1. You have to do 2 stars for this, num2. And basically if you've done anything with like math, do powers of, so you do like 4 to the power of 4, it'd be like 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. So if we go ahead and run this, we'll go ahead and echo the answer. And we go back to the browser and run that. It's 243. Because 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is that's what it's going to be. So next, we'll go ahead and go into modulo. Modulo is pretty easy. We're going to go ahead and start with an easy one and do, let's say, num2 modulo num1. And what that's basically going to echo out in the answer, sorry, let's go ahead and grab this and echo the answer. Basically what that's going to do is that's going to do 5 divided by 3. And that's going to basically say 3 only goes into 5 once, but what's the remainder? The remainder is going to be 2. So when we go back to your browser and we refresh, you'll see that the answer is 2. All right. Now that is basically everything you're going to need as far as that. Okay, and let's go into another function. You can do something called random. This is another math function that you can use. Basically, it deals with numbers, not really math. What you can do is do rand open close parentheses, because it's a function within PHP, and we'll go ahead and feed it 1 and 100 because it goes min to max. So it has 2 properties on it. And just an FYI, we'll go into properties later as far as what properties are of a function. And if we go ahead and answer that, and let's go ahead and put, let's put quotes, your random number is, let's put a period, and let's go ahead and go back to the browser. And if we refresh that, what did we do wrong? Oh, we didn't echo it. Makes complete sense. So if we echo answer, and then obviously add the /n to make it to where it's on a new line. Let's go back to our browser and refresh. You'll see your random number is 50, and refresh again, your random number is 43. So it randomizes. Okay, so let's explain constants. Constants are basically variables that can be used globally. Generally, you'd want to use these when you're setting up like environment variables such as host for, let's say, a database connection, username and password. You can set these up as global variables, which in order to do that, you would want to type out define. And generally, you'd want to set these up in a completely different file that you're going to go ahead and import. So that way you have like these global constants that can never be changed. And that's another thing. Once you set a constant, you don't go and change it ever. So when it comes to naming constants, you're going to go ahead and name them with capital letters. That's just how most people do it. Everywhere I've worked, anytime we have a constant, it's always capital, like caps locked. So after that, we can set the value for this. So let's say the value is AWS blah dot blah dot blah .com, and then we follow that up with a semicolon. Now with constants, you can treat these completely different than variables. With a constant, you can literally type out, you have to make sure you do this in caps locks, you can type out host. And with that, if you save it and you go back to your browser and refresh, you'll see that it displays out AWS blah blah blah.com. Now, like I said, these are super important. I have not worked on a project that doesn't use some sort of constants. 9 times out of 10, these constants would be available inside some sort of class. So that way they're kind of contained and then they're not like just completely global, but there is some global variables. PHP has a set of them as well. So I would say that was definitely quite a bit of stuff that we learned today. For now, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. Learning these are very important, especially with the vardump. Vardump is absolutely useful when it comes to doing like debugging or like if you need to see what a value is. But it has a lot to do with debugging. It makes your life so much easier. So definitely learn how to use vardumps. You'll be using a lot of these mathematic operations with inside PHP. They're very useful as well. And constants, trust me, constants, you'll see them all the time. A lot of times you'll see it in like, let's say if you have like an action log of some sort inside your code that you want to make sure that each action has a value assigned to it. So like say if you have an action of page loaded, you can make a call back and then it will take that constant for page loaded and log it into the database. So that way, every time you look at that database, you'll see that, okay, 1 is associated with page loaded. So that way, you know for a fact it's always going to be constant. That's the reason why it's called constant. So if you have any questions or concerns, or if you had any issues with any of this, please let me know down below, or comments, anything you'd like. If you're enjoying this, please, hopefully you are. And also like and subscribe because I have some more coming soon. Most likely we'll be going into arrays and loops or conditions in the next lecture. So stick around. Thank you.